Well, it happened, just as expected. The Marvels failed hard at theaters, but there's more to the story than you think.
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
After 33 films, it looks like the MCU is out of steam. The Marvels opened to a record-breaking number, but it's not the record you'd expect. The shortest MCU film cost an astounding $220 million to produce. But it's already struggling to break even, and after next weekend, it may be already dead. But don't cry, because today's video is brought to you by comic book entertainment that will make you laugh. Stealing Solo asks the greatest what-if question of all time. What if a group of disgruntled Star Wars fans kidnap Harrison Ford and force him to remake Star Wars in their basement? That, and a whole lot more, is answered in Stealing Solo, a Captain's Parody. Stealing Solo has been called Laugh Out Loud Funny and the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs, and it's available now for a limited time only. Go to stealingsolo.com, which is powered by Shopify, so you get the reward-winning safety and security, and get yourselves a copy today. Once we sell through this limited backstock, I'm going back to the drawing board to bring you the sequel, which parodies Luke Skywalker's fall from grace, and finally the closing chapter, which I can't wait to get to, Frankenfisher, the Bride of Solo. And yes, it's exactly what you think it is. So folks, the only way to get that is go to stealingsolo.com right now, get yourselves a copy, and enjoy the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs. The best years of the MCU are behind it. What was once the movie event of the year has become just another release, and fans are passing up new MCU films after a string of disappointments and indecision. A look at the numbers tells a very damning story, but it goes deeper than facts, figures, and fatigue. The Marvels opened to a dismal $47 million, the lowest ever for a Disney MCU film. In regards to US admissions, the Marvels came in per Ent Intelligence at 3.3 million, compared to other superhero bombs The Flash at 3.9 million and Eternals at 5.5 million. Talk about a huge drop from the Eternals to this? Let's keep going on. Also, The Marvels gets one of the several post-pandemic B cinema scores from audiences. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness got a B+, Thor Love and Thunder a B+, Eternals a B, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania a B. Also, ComScore and Screen Engineer post-track exits are worse at 3.5 stars and only 73% positive. By all accounts and all sources, it's a disastrous result for a $200 million Marvel Studios movie. The Marvel's misfire is about the rusting of a platinum brand that is in need of some serious, not polishing, but rather resurfacing. Months ago, who would have thought that a Universal film, like Five Nights at Freddy's, would post a higher opening box office? Five Nights at Freddy's opened to $80 million, almost double that of the Marvels. It's interesting to put these two pieces of IP side by side because it says something about Universal and Disney's ability to harness fans around an event. As mentioned earlier, there's a maelstrom of reasons why the Marvels didn't work. Many will be quick to point out superhero fatigue, and that the great comic book movies of the millennium are now seeing their grand demise, just like the big Hollywood musicals of the 1960s. Well, it's interesting, every time one of these movies comes out, Hollywood likes to tell us that it's not fatigue, and they have an excuse. Well, let's hear this excuse from Hollywood right here. Marvel diehards are a devoted bunch, and when they know there's a good movie on deck, they show up several times. Just a year ago, sequel Wakanda Forever, Black Panther scored an A. It was in the Oscar mix with ultimately 5 nominations, and it opened to a massive $181.3 million and legged out a near $500 million stateside and $859 million worldwide. Yeah, but it also dropped massively from the first film. That's the part no one ever talks about. They'll talk about the new goalpost that they've moved, but they don't talk about the original. They don't talk about what the films made before. And if you look at all of the MCU films, the Avengers didn't have these massive drop-offs. You had the first one at $1.5 billion. Now, admittedly, the next one dropped off and made $1.4 billion. And you had the next one make over $2 billion each. So Marvel fans know exactly what's going on. Excellent superhero movies sell, and there was no pulse on the Marvels going back to San Diego Comic-Con. Despite the actors' strike, there wasn't a damn banner, billboard, or emblazoned logo on a plastic bag in the city. Disney could have at least dropped a featurette or a trailer to wow fans in Hall H and send them into a social media frenzy. But why miss out on the opportunity before the 150,000 who still attended? It's as though Disney knew this whipped cream sequel was a dud and cut their losses. I think that's the most honest thing you're ever going to hear Hollywood say about this. This film, The Marvels, was confused. It wanted to be a light, fun, fluffy film that they wanted to market towards women, kind of like the Barbie movie, and it didn't work. The director really isn't known for very much outside of a remake of Candyman. And that really shines a light on the biggest Marvel problem. They don't get any filmmaker with an actual vision. Really, it's just the overbearing producers and the corporate behemoth behind the films, because even a master like Sam Raimi has to deal with Marvel politics. Still, even after following the marketing playbook of promoting a pick heavily across sports and female-skewing series, it was clear that nothing in the first fluffy trailer that triggered a want-to-see for Marvel fans, nor was there in the final trailer which introduced the sequel's villain, Dar-Ben, and vied to connect the property to the greater Avengers core films. Well, in this case, folks, it was too little, too late. No, The Marvels isn't about superhero fatigue, it's about Disney's overexposure of the Marvel Cinematic Universe brand on Disney+. Interesting take. And those moth holes are beginning to show. Keep what's meant for the cinema in cinemas, and keep what's meant in homes in home. Meaning the whole crossover streaming into film master plan isn't working, nor is it really connected in a jaw-dropping way, with Miss Marvel not being one of the better series. There's a whole quad of fans who either didn't catch Miss Marvel, or they were too turned off by it, and sure as heck didn't want to see The Marvels. Per post-track, 64% of the Marvels audience have Disney+. But more to the point, Marvel Studios' The Marvels, with its crossover streaming series, looks like it was built to be seen in homes and not to get audiences off the couch. Also, too, the title is really a mouthful. Marvel Studios' The Marvels. It's the same word twice, and there's only 4 words in the title. Do better, Disney. That spread the Marvel thick on Disney Plus was first suggested by CEO Bob Iger and later carried out by Bob Chapek. It's no secret that the amount of less-than-stellar product Marvel is pumping out from overextending itself stems from that grand master plan. As Iger explained to investors on a recent earnings call in the wake of a lackluster Disney box office year of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Ant-Man 3, and Elemental, I've always felt that quantity can actually be a negative when it comes to quality, and I think that's exactly what happened. We lost some focus. Bob, that's an understatement. Disney's delay of the next phase of the MCU because of the actors' strike, with Deadpool 3 being the only picture from the studio on 2024's calendar, is apt to be a blessing in the long run, as the studio concentrates on making better movies. Hopefully, absence will make the fans' hearts grow fonder. Now, this is an interesting part of the article that we're going to talk about in a moment. How could you make a less serious feature sequel to a $1.1 billion grossing Wonder Woman movie that is, in effect, Marvel's Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel? The latter movie is the highest grossing female superhero film of all time. Yes, we all say to make superhero movies lighter and not darker, but in the case of the Marvels, it's a 180-degree shift from the original movie's heroic roots. The Marvels, instead, is some sort of time-jumping, silly comedy that fans weren't asking for. It's a swing that has greatly cost Marvel Studios the entire Captain Marvel franchise, relegating her now to a supporting character in the rest of the MCU. She was always a supporting character in the MCU. No matter what you want to tell the fans, we know, and the constant relaunches and number ones of Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel and whatever you want to say, are the number one indicator that a brand is not popular and that a character is not popular. And after all the drama that surrounds these films, Captain Marvel has finally taken her place where she belongs. Towards the bottom of the MCU. Now, this article goes on to talk about the actors' strike, but it also says I can't imagine that a complete absence of Brie Larson's Marvel campaign has cost the sequel $106 million in its opening compared to the first one. There's something else going on. One studio insider has argued to Deadline that the Marvel's drop here is attributed to the pick not being part of the sandwich between Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, the former pick having a coda that teed off Captain Marvel. That might be true, but the article says they can't imagine the epilogue alone is responsible for $1.1 billion in global grosses. What the article at Deadline is failing to acknowledge is that Avengers Infinity War made over $2 billion. That movie was one of the most hyped films of all time, and that's what led into Captain Marvel. And here's some demographic information about the Marvels. 65% male-leaning, with 45% of the men over 25. Only 22% women over 25, but that demographic gives it the best score at an 82%. Men under 25 are 20%, and women under 25 are 14%. The biggest demographic was 25 to 34 at 33%. The diversity demo, was 36%. Caucasian, 27%. Now, in its favor, the Marvel secured all the PLF screens in IMAX, which represents 38% of the weekend's take. Now, originally Dune 2 was supposed to come out on this date. Can you imagine if Dune 2 opened against the Marvels? The Marvels would be an even bigger failure, because looking at the demographic numbers, it's 65% male with 45% over 25. Those people would go see Dune over the Marvels. But this weekend, the Marvels has to fight The Hunger Games, which that audience demographic is more female, so expect the MCU to drop even further. And here's the final interesting metric about the Marvels. The movie is playing well in the South, South Central, and the West, and it's number one at the AMC in Disney Springs. Of course it's going to be number one at the Disney AMC Theater. I lived out in California. The closer you get to the theme park, the less free will audiences have. For as bright as the sun is out there, no one has the right sunglasses. There are a lot of excuses being thrown around as to why the Marvels is failing. One of the most egregious is that people don't like movie theaters anymore. Weirdly enough, a film like Barbie, which the Marvels definitely expected to help their box office, broke records for Warner Brothers. Barbie and the Super Mario movie are the only billion-dollar hits this year, with Oppenheimer being very close. Cinema isn't dead. People will show up for the movie if it's good or marketed properly, and the Marvels wasn't. Neither was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, The Little Mermaid, or every other Marvel and Disney film that did not hit it big this year. Remember, folks, when Disney has a problem, it's an industry-wide problem. When another studio has a problem, it's their fault. Even if the article's talking about how poorly Disney's doing, they're trying to give them the benefit of the doubt by making it seem like the whole situation is everyone's problem, not just Disney. But Warner Brothers had a really big hit. Universal had a really big hit. Multiple big hits. Video game movies are in, comic book movies are out, and that's what these writers have to realize, or fail to realize. The initial ad for the Marvels with the Beastie Boys was incredibly honest as to the tone and the style of the film, but audiences didn't want that from their superhero films. Comedy works for Guardians of the Galaxy, but not for Captain Marvel. Also, the Marvels doesn't know what its demographic is. As we discussed a moment ago, the statistics show that it's mostly white men over 25 who see these Marvel movies, yet this was targeted towards the Barbie crowd, or the dreaded Taylor Swift crowd. The Barbie crowd didn't show up to support Captain Marvel and was never going to. Superhero films were part of the cultural zeitgeist, and that's why everyone went to see them, and that's why they had the huge box office. Now, post-pandemic, that's over. They're on the fringe and they're bleeding out, yet the money put into them has not decreased. Speaking of decreases, the first Captain Marvel movie opened to $153 million. The Marvels opened to $47 million. That's a decrease of over 69%.
Excellent!
Where did that audience go? Clearly the superhero crowd is gone, at least 69% of it anyway. That or this film just looked that bad. Of course the truth is somewhere in the middle, but the numbers don't lie and they spell disaster for the Marvels. Following the numbers of Captain Marvel, if the Marvels follow suit, it will drop 56% next weekend, making roughly $26.3 million. However, it could drop more since the new Hunger Games is released. This will be the second time in a year that Rachel Zegler is costing Disney money. If Marvel would have made content for the actual consumers instead of creating a cult around their projects that praises everything, yet don't watch it, they'd be in a much better place. The Marvels is what happens when you expect an audience to consume everything you produce. But what Marvel failed to realize is that the people weren't going to watch the ever-declining Disney Plus shows, they were just going to skip it. All. It looks as if Disney Plus is doing more damage than good. The lack of quality or the lack of recognizable characters is hurting the brand. Look at retailers. Merchandise from these things rarely sell and end up on clearance at Ollie's. Be on the lookout for a new video this week. I think it's safe to say that the Marvels doesn't move the needle. The comic book sales prove that these characters aren't popular, but the internet journalists and Marvel themselves pushed on, calling everyone not interested a bigot or a hater, and this box office bomb is a result of all of that. Try putting She-Hulk in a film and see how low the box office will go. Audiences don't like these characters, and Marvel is shoving them down our throats. Not a single one is resonating with audiences. The numbers for the streaming go down as costs increase. Secret Invasion cost over $200 million to produce, and the only thing it produced were terrible critic scores and failure. Ms. Marvel received high praise, but Disney Plus subscriptions haven't moved, and now The Marvels is the lowest opening in the history of the MCU. When does this stop? Why can't Marvel fix the problem? Well, it's because they don't want to fix the problem. The people in charge are more worried about their films and shows featuring women and minority characters than they are making money. It's the old business strategy, doing well by doing good, but according to Harvard Business Review, that's bullshit. This is what they have to say. It's alluring and very much in vogue to connect social responsibility with profitability. If you can make a business case for a positive social action, everybody wins: employees, shareholders, and society at large. But for decades, researchers have labored to answer the nagging question: is there, in fact, a link between corporate social performance and corporate financial performance? Not a strong one, according to an analysis of 167 such studies that were conducted over 35 years. A project we undertook with James P. Walsh from the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business. While doing good doesn't appear to destroy shareholder value, we found that only a small correlation between corporate behavior and good financial results. Moreover, the minor correlation that does exist could well be explained by deep pockets. Indeed, of the various forms social responsibility can take, cash contributions to charities have shown a stronger correlation with success than have socially responsible corporate policies or community projects. So Disney and their social initiative did nothing for their bottom line, and now there are nearly $250 million wasted on the Marvels and everything that built to it. The moral of the story is, make quality content based on characters that people like. The numbers prove that it's just not angry white dudes on the internet that don't like Captain Marvel. Women don't like her, kids don't like her, Other races don't like her. Your pets don't like her. It would be easy to figure out who likes Captain Marvel. Raise your hands if you like Captain Marvel. Just as I thought. The Marvels is DOA. It's not going to make a miraculous jump next weekend. It's going to slide down even further. Expect some vague metric to be used to promote the film when it hits streaming, but that's it for the sequel to Captain Marvel. See folks, there were a lot of factors that made Captain Marvel a billion-dollar film, but none of it had to do with Brie Larson, the quality of the film, or the popularity of the character. You put out a 2-hour film about cheese-making between Infinity War and Endgame, and you'd still be counting the cheddar. Captain Marvel was released at the right time and confused a lot of people into thinking that the hero was stronger, better, and faster than she really was. The gap between this and Deadpool, combined with the gap after Deadpool, should give audiences enough time to get rid of the Marvel's aftertaste. But can Marvel pull their heads out of their asses to make a film that audiences want? That's something to talk about another time. So folks, what did you think of the Marvels? Did you watch it? Let me know down in the comments below. Here are your 3 questions for today. 1, are you surprised that the Marvels is the lowest opening in the history of the MCU? 2, what do you think it'll make next weekend? And 3, do you think we'll ever see Captain Marvel, played by Brie Larson, ever on the big screen again? She was sort of a side character in her own film, so I'm guessing that we're going to not see much of Brie Larson moving forward. Or Miss Marvel, or the other one. Come on, it was such a dumb concept. We're going to take 3 characters, we're going to call them the Marvels, and make this the sequel to Captain Marvel. We finally know where Captain Marvel stands in terms of popularity. The billion-dollar metric means very little now that the sequel can't even make a fraction of that. Last time, too, there was a lot of talk about pre-sale tickets, how people were buying at full theaters to take girls to see the movie, to make it a big cultural event on International Women's Day. All of those marketing ploys and tactics aren't at play here, and look what happened. Maybe it goes to show you that some of these Marvel films need all of that type of promotion and added bonus stuff, fluff if you will, to get people to watch them. This movie tried to sell itself on the power of the Marvel brand and the humor of the Marvel brand, and look what we got. The best joke to come out of this film is the film itself, and no one's laughing to the bank, we're just laughing at them for other reasons. But if you want to hear our full review, check out last week's podcast, episode 379 of World Class Bullshitters. About an hour and 12 minutes into the show, we get going because we were waiting for somebody that had seen the movie to get back from the theater. So check out our full review of the Marvels, but spoiler alert, we didn't really like it. It somehow got a lower score than the first Captain Marvel, which we said back in 2019, and we'll say again, that film was judged on its own merit. Not what Brie Larson said, not about our views on any actor or opinions on anything, just what was on screen. And that's how we reviewed the Marvels this time. It was not good. It was bad. It was terrible. It was cringy. It was many other things. And I hope Marvel stops making movies like this. Not everything needs to be an epic like the Avengers, but things should be entertaining. And cut back on the damn comedy. Marvel, you don't know what your jokes are supposed to be. They don't resonate with audiences, and people don't like it. But folks, if you want to laugh at reading a comic book that you're supposed to laugh at, well, check out StealingSolo.com right now to get the greatest Star Wars parody ever. It answers the greatest what-if question: what if a group of disgruntled Star Wars fans kidnap Harrison Ford and force him to remake Star Wars in their basement? It's been called Laugh Out Loud funny, hilarious, people love it. So get yourselves a copy, there's limited supply left, and the only way to get that is at StealingSolo.com. The website is powered by Shopify, so you get their award-winning safety and security, and books are shipped out all the time. And then folks, if you get yourselves a copy, tag us on Twitter or X, and let us know that you got the book, and tell us what you think about it. You can put humor in comic books. I do it quite well. But Marvel somehow keeps missing the boat. So, if you want to watch more cringy entertainment, then go watch the MCU. But if you want something of quality that doesn't have a massive weekend drop-off, well, get a copy of Stealing Solo. But folks, thank you for watching. I'll be back next time with more. But in the meantime, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other. Thanks for watching today's video. Yes, it's over, but don't cry because there's more, a lot more from World Class Bullshitters. And there's only one way to get it. Hit that subscribe button below. When you do that, you'll get notifications and updates from World Class Bullshitters every time we go live. Basically, you won't miss anything. And if there's one thing I hate, it's FOMO. But the thing most people hate more than FOMO is fear of missing out on World Class Bullshitters, because there's just some things you can't undo. So folks, do yourselves a favor and never miss anything from World Class Bullshitters. One last thing before you go, hit the thumbs up button. Not for our egos, no, they're big enough as this, but it does help us fight the algorithm here, and well, it's man versus machine, and that's the real fight.
But if that's not your battle, that's okay. There's one last way you can help WCBS, and that's going over to shopwcbs.com, picking up a t-shirt, a beer glass, a sweatshirt, a poster, all sorts of ways to back WCBS. The difference between us and other YouTube channels is I'm the artist that makes all this stuff, so if you enjoy art beyond t-shirts, you can even read our comic books. We got it all. We're called the epitome of pop culture for a reason, and no, again, it's not for our egos. So folks, make sure you're involved with every aspect of world-class bullshitters, not just for us, but do it for yourself. We're making the change in entertainment everybody out there wants to see. And a special thank you goes out to all of our wonderful patrons who make this content possible. Go to patreon.com/worldclassbs to get involved and help out the channel.